Hello everyone, welcome to American History Class 202.
What shall we learn today?
For today's class, we'll discuss one of the American presidents who was the first president who resigned from the office.
Wow, this seems very interesting. Let's talk more about it.
Definitely, we will take up on Richard Nixon.
Oh, I heard about him here. Had Richard Nixon been known as a tricky dick?
Exactly. He has used some dirty tricks to achieve more advantages.
Let's discover some facts of Nixon before we move on to the main topics, shall we?
Yeah, literally. He was born on January 9, 1913 in California, US and died at the age of 81 on April 22, 1994 in New York City, US.
In fact, he was the 37th President of the United States from 1969 to 1974 and a member of the Republican Party. Moreover, Nixon previously served as a 36th Vice President from 1953 to 1961.
In the section, the lesson we will argue about presidency of Nixon. We will concentrate on the foreign affairs and the Watergate scandal.
Whatever we mention Nixon, we must talk about foreign affairs. This section is divided into 7 parts such as Henry Kissinger, Dedant, visit to China, visit to Soviet Union, SALT, Chile, and exit from Vietnam.
The first foreign affair was something to do with Henry Kissinger, who was an American politician tenured as Secretary of the State. He was involved in US foreign policy in the late 1960s and 1970s. In 1969, Nixon appointed Kissinger as a national security advisor as he guided about foreign policy.
Indeed, his philosophy was pragmatic outlook damned realpolitik. Kissinger further gave Nixon direction to 2 famous summit visits to China and Soviet. This was rather right to the topic of Dedant.
Coming up to the topic of détente, it originated from a French word which means to release from tension. In fact, détente itself has lowered the tensions between the opposite communist countries.
Later in 1972, Nixon visited China, which was one of the historic events, as he got to meet with the dictator leader Mao. This visit lasted up to 8 days, which was the television to American TV to celebrate the triumph that has been accomplished. This was remarkable circumstance, as they aimed to develop the relationship between USA and China. However, many Americans saw Nixon as a betrayal because he has been to the communist country.
The visit purposely stated about diplomatic recognition. In addition, the Nixon administration agreed that as a result of this normalization, the United States would end its official recognition of Taiwan and withdraw military forces from the island, which China claimed was part of its People's Republic.
In May, the same year as he visited China, Nixon visited Soviet Union to declare the argument of Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev. They signed the Treaty of SALT, the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, which curtailed the manufacture to strategic missiles capable of carrying nuclear weapons. The treaty limited the anti-ballistic missile system ABM of 200 each between US and USSR.
Basically, during that time, the United States became very powerful in which the states bolstered anti-communism. Hence, they budgeted and supported countries to become independent. The United States intervened in the politics of Chile via the emergence of political tensions. Throughout that time, Allende, who was a Marxist leader and got up to 36% of votes, which was a plurality, and became the president in November 1970. In October 1970, Schneider, who believed that the role of the military was the only way to defend Chile, was killed. Moreover, in the era, the economy in his period did not go well as he fixed prices on stuff which caused shortages.
while Nixon talked with his advisor Kissinger about alert. There seemed that Kissinger turned off the plan. Hence, this showed that Kissinger has been thinking about killing Schneider. Later on, there was a belief that military leaders would sign him. In 1973, September 11, a then-day deposed suicide, which seemed that it's mainly by the CIA. After Elena died, Augusto Pinochet became the president. He was a turn in which he altered the government to become junta and got support from Nixon and Kissinger. Pinochet became president until the year 1990.
Another event that Nixon was involved in was the Vietnam War when establishing the new program, Vietnamization. As he said, the Vietnam War is coming to the conclusion as a result of the plan that we have instituted.
This program, willing to build South Vietnamese force, became more capable than withdrawing U.S. force back home. Around 60,000 U.S. troops received Nixon's order, especially the U.S. 25th Infantry Division left immediately while he spoke to the public. In addition, he commanded to provide modern equipment and weapons and increase the advisory effort.
Nixon's pronouncements that the war was ending proved premature. However, he expanded the war by ordering U.S. and South Vietnamese troops to attack communist sanctuaries in Cambodia in April 1970, which led to a number of anti-war demonstrations in the United States, and 4 protesters got shot by National Guard at Kent State.
On the negotiation after the bombing of North Vietnam in December 1972, the Paris Peace Accords were signed in January 1973. Under the provision of the Accords, U.S. forces were completely withdrawn. Therefore, for the Vietnamese, and the fighting continued until April 1975.
However, his domestic movement had led his presidency to downfall, thus his action is noticeably disgraceful and abusive to the justification of power.
There was one of the most significant incidents in presidential history, which was the Watergate scandals. In this situation, Nixon had sworn to be impeached. Nonetheless, he resigned before he got officially impeached.
Nixon administration on continuous attempts to conceal their involvement in the June 17, 1972 break-in of the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Washington, D.C. Watergate office building. Besides, Nixon had secretly directed the White House counsel John Dean to oversee his incident as a rejection.
Moreover, Nixon also obstructed the Federal Bureau of Investigation and its authority for examination and permit secret cash payment to the Watergate burglars in an attempt to prevent them from implicating the involvement.
There were 5 people who had been arrested and charged. Their names are Virgilio Gonzalez, Bernard Barker, James McCurt, Eugenio Martinez, and Frank Sturges. Additionally,
James McCord, Chief of Secretary of the Republican Election Management Commission at Nixon and former FBI officials, has asserted the phone number of Elemente Howard Hunt Jr. He was White House controller and former CIA, and later discovered that Hunt was the person behind the espionage.
That was during the time of 1972 election. Nixon had declined to give any comment on a third-rate burglary attempt.
Nevertheless, the Washington Post journalists Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein has exposed the shadowy truth behind Nixon by trying to reveal all the connection between burglars based on the unknown source Steve Throat. Besides, the attempt had raised numerous investigations against Nixon and his impeachment as its ramification. However, they has promised that they would reveal the name of their unknown source after the death of him.
In fact, it was William Mark Feld while he was an associate director of the FBI. He had revealed himself as the notorious unknown source named Deep Throat. He was a secret key man to expose this scandal as he incorporated the disclosure with Woodward.
However, back in 1969, Nixon had installed the recording system in the White House and that all the conversation in Oval Office were recorded. As the scandal was overwhelmingly rise, the tapes were subpoenaed by Ashford Cox, the special prosecutor appointed to investigate the Watergate affair. Thus, Nixon rejected but compromised to provide a summary transcript instead of revealing the record to the public, which later was revealed by Cox.
Besides, the Saturday Night Massacre has displaced many officers, including Cox, that the federal district court considered his action to be illegal.
Soon after, he had agreed on an appointment of another special prosecutor, Leon Jaworski, and promised not to displace him with his presidential power.
At the time, Nixon had televised news conferences defending himself and the White House. Besides, the request for the recorded tapes by Cox forced him to release 7 of the 9 tapes that had been edited, in which one of the tapes suspiciously cut off.
Consequently, Jaworski had subpoenaed the other 64 tapes which Nixon withheld them under his power of executive privilege. Shortly, the Supreme Court ruled that his executive privilege was failed in justice.
In accordance with the ruling of the Supreme Court, he had to submit transcripts of conversation taped on June 23, 1972, in which recorded discussion about a plan to utilize the CIA to obstruct the FBI from investigating the Watergate break-in. Besides, this tape was known as the smoking gun as a direct evidence of his guilt.
However, the House of Judiciary Committee has voted on 3 articles of impeachment relating to obstruction of justice, abuse to power, and failure to comply with congressional subpoena.
In the evening of August 8, 1974, he had to inform the resignation that will be effective at noon the next day, in order to escape from being officially impeached, ending his presidency as the first president who resigned before serving the full term.
From our aspect, he is a very bad president that has tried to maintain his power, utilizing the privilege of abusive action which obstructs the fairness of democracy.
That is certain. He was a crook as he rejected himself. Nonetheless, his domestic policy was considered to be progressive, and surely he did that not for his sake, whereas for the nation. For example, he had presided over the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, or APA, which enforced the Clean Water Act. The additional welfare that was adopted by the Congress to assist low-income individuals who are aged or disabled, or even decreased the legal age to vote from 20 to 18.
He might have disobeyed a law or two. However, his progressive policy has elevated American society by his own right.
So, what do you think about Nixon? Was he a crook or an honorable president who had tried his best for his beloved country, and why?